It's time for Uncle Hank. Question everything with M. Kalani Souza and Uncle Hank Ferguson.
Hey everybody, we're back and we're here with Uncle Hank.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hey Hank, what's going on, man? Keep us up to speed.
Okay. So, I'm going to take it from the top of the mountain.
The top of the mountain down to the ocean. I love your Ahu sensibilities, your Moku sensibilities. You go.
Okay, so we know from the last time we were talking, we know that that TMT is now in the process of getting their NPDES, or National Pollution Discharge Elimination System.
Well, that's the wastewater from TMT.
The wastewater.
No, wait. Let me get this straight. Didn't they have a closed system for handling their sewage and their wastewater?
This is why this is so important, because when we did the contested case, the whole emphasis was on the TMT itself.
Right. It was once it begins operating,
it's going to be self-contained.
Self-contained. Right. Seems like they're doing a good job.
Yeah. It wasn't until we started understanding what an NPDES permit is all about.
What is that? That's the waste management? Is that the sewage, or is that something else?
No. This has to do with construction.
Wait. The construction.
The construction. What's happening with all the wastewater from the construction? Because as they're building, they have several staging sites.
Right.
One of them just happens to be right above Lake Waiau. Okay? And that's going to be where they're going to be mixing cement.
Lake Waiau. That's the freshwater lake.
That's the highest spring in the whole Pacific.
If I remember correctly, if legend and our training serves, that's a rather sacred place.
Extraordinary.
Regarding both Poleahu and Hina and Papaonui and
Yes. And the mo that lives there is
Hiki.
Hinanea.
Yeah, we don't talk too much about the Kihawahines.
Yes. Anyway, this is very important because when we did the contested case, we were always concentrating on the TMT itself,
right?
And once it's functioning,
and that's the facility.
That's the facility, and so we were comfortable with the idea that they came to the idea that it's going to be a closed system. Everything's
I love that the modern engineering.
Yes. However, what we hadn't considered, because we were concentrating on the TMT itself, is the construction and the movement of equipment.
How long is this construction going to be? A year, 2 years?
No, 10 to 12 years.
10 to 12 years.
10 to 12 years.
Wait a minute. I think I'm getting this. You mean to say that for 10 to 12 years, there's going to be discharged construction water from the mountaintop prior to the closed system?
Yes. That's why this NPDES system is extremely important. So what we have to start calculating into is for instance at the batch plant, which is right above Lake Waiau.
Right.
They're going to be mixing the cement.
The batch plant where they mix the cement is going right above the lake?
It's right above the lake.
That doesn't sound very smart to me.
No, it doesn't sound very smart at all. And as a matter of fact, part of the discharge system that they've suggested is to throw some of that wastewater into Puakaloa Gulch, which is right next to Lake Waiau.
Wait a minute. Nobody gets away with just throwing construction. I mean, construction happens every day in Kona, Hilo, along the coast, everywhere. People don't get to just toss their discharging water anywhere. I mean, I can't imagine if I told the county I was just going to go down to the gulch and just dump my water.
Well, that's exactly what they're saying. And in fact, we didn't find that out until we started to review the NPDES permit. And then we find out that their intention is to drop whatever water waste they have during the construction period into 5 different gulches.
Oh, man.
That includes Puakaloa Gulch, Kimole Gulch.
This is starting to rub me the wrong way. All I know is when you get above 10,000 feet with construction equipment, under that lower pressure, right, in the high altitudes, those diesel and chemical hoses are going to burst, right? They're going to,
crazy.
Those chemicals get all over the ground.
Yes.
They get all over the ground, and then they're rained on or they're snowed on. Wow, they're just going to make their way down into the water table.
Yeah, and that's what's crazy because as the permit shows right now, they're only going to do berms along the road to catch that runoff. But they're not talking about underneath the trucks and all the stuff that's spilling off. And for instance, like every time you do a load of cement, you have to wash the truck out. That has to go someplace. That's what I'm talking about. All that waste. Now we're talking about 20 to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 12 years. Okay? And
wow, that's a lot of waste.
That's a lot of waste. It's an awful lot of waste.
So they got a permit, but their permit only covers from the point after construction.
No. As a matter of fact, the permit they had they renewed it on time, this whole thing wouldn't have come to light. Okay, they had a permit that included the construction.
So they don't have a renewed permit.
Not at this time.
Don't they claim that they have a renewed permit?
Yes. The state is claiming they have a renewed permit, or the permit is almost like granted in. And again, we would have not known that had they not failed to renew the existing permit.
Wait. Slow down. I'm so confused. So, do they have a permit or don't they have a permit?
Technically speaking, they do not. The permit that they had expired. That's why we went through this whole hearing, and that's why we're coming up to a contested
But they're
case.
claiming that they had a renewed permit in 2018 or something like that.
That's when they reapplied, but they were late to reapply. And according to the law, if you are late, then you have to start from scratch again. And it was because it started from scratch again, we got to review the whole permit that we didn't know about before. We didn't even know about this MPDS permit and what it is.
Wow.
And so what really caught my attention is understanding already that it's going to be 12 years of work, 20 to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that everything that we talked about as far as discharge happened to do with the TMT when it's finished. So for the 10 to 12 years it's going to take to build it, we have all this runoff that we have to figure out what to do.
I want to make sure that I get this straight because I'm not really sure if I get this straight. So let me see. For 10 to 12 years, these machines are going to be discharging waste chemicals and materials over the surface of the mountain, and the annual rain and snowfall is going to create a drainage problem where they're transporting these non-point source pollution elements across the face of the mountain. And I think you're suggesting that hopefully they're going to steer it to the gulches.
Well, okay, this is where the
I
problem...
didn't even know you could steer spillage like that, or snow, or rain. I mean, in my mind, this seems like an impossible task. What are they going to do? Put an entire polyurethane dome over the entire cap of the mountain to stop the snow and the rainfall?
Well, this is why it brings so much question. Okay, we're talking about Wakaloa Gulch, Kimola Gulch. These are all the major gulches around the mountain.
Ew.
One of the big problems is there's no roads to go to these places. So now we have a whole nother problem of how you're going to get your discharge to the place. Okay? And that's a very, very controversial thing. Again, Wakaloa Gulch is right next to Lake Waiau.
Well, I understand, but it's like, I know it's how do you get from the site to the gulch, if that's what you're claiming, if it's just going to run willy-nilly and you go where the snow and the rainfall goes. Well, I guess gravity, they're claiming that's the hydrology of the slope and that's where the water goes. But I'm thinking, why does that make it okay to discharge diesel and chemicals and oil into the gulches at the mountaintop? Wouldn't that just either permeate into the water table or continue on the surface, polluting the entire way?
That's what we are very concerned with. Because unless there is some kind of lining on the roads itself, we're not going to be able to contain these things like oil spills, drip-offs of concrete and that kind of stuff, yeah? And then, how do you get it to the site where you think you're going to dump it? this is where the alarm came to me. Is like, how are you going to get it? There's no roads going to any of these places.
There's no, they're not going to build an LY. There's not going to be a flume that moves the toxins.
No, and that's what we're actually pointing out. How are you going to get it from point A to point B?
In a nutshell, how do you manage the wastewater for 12 years from the construction of this project?
And so, because we don't know, that's the whole point of it. Question everything.
Yeah.
Question and question and question everything.
I understand, Uncle Hank, and I think you're so right. Folks, let's remember, the most important thing is whether or not you know, don't know, or think you know, you really should question everything. This is Uncle Hank.
Hey, aloha gang.
Come be a part of a minority view.
Ao he pau ike, I ka halau ho o kahi,